Why are we here? We're here to learn about the 80-20 principle. I think it's one of the very few things which actually really is a magic pill, a pill that actually works. It's the observation that there are few causes which have great results. 20% of causes will lead to 80% of results.
So most things actually don't matter at all. They're relatively insignificant.
One of my favorite quotations comes rather oddly perhaps from a Prussian army officer called General von Manstein, who had this to say about his people. He said, there are only 4 types of officers. First, there are the lazy, stupid ones. Now, did he suggest firing these people? Not at all. He said, leave them alone, they do no harm. Because at least they're lazy. Second, there are the hard-working, intelligent ones. Now, they're good, obviously. They make excellent staff officers, ensuring that every aspect of a plan is very carefully considered. And third, there are the hard-working, stupid ones. Now, these people, he said, he'd really got in for these people are a menace. They must be fired at once. They create irrelevant work for everybody. And finally, there are the intelligent, lazy ones. Now, these people are suited for the highest office. We expect the world to be balanced in terms of causes and results. We expect all events and causes to have roughly the same significance. But the reality is very different.
There are some forces in the world which are incredibly powerful and which are going to determine most of the results. So, for example, burglars. I always like to start with burglars. Burglars, 20% of burglars will make off with 80% of the loot, for example. 20% of motorists will cause 80% of accidents. 20% of your clothes, or far fewer actually, that are hanging in your wardrobes, you will wear 80% of the time.
20% of your time is probably responsible for more than 80% of the valuable output that you present. And ideas, well, certainly 20% of ideas have led to more than 80% of results.
20% of activities in companies will determine 80% of their success, so-called core activities. And it's interesting that the companies that are most profitable in the world are generally those, such as Microsoft or Apple, who limit themselves to doing only a very few things and then replicating those time and time again.
And if we can isolate what these few things are in our work, in our companies and in our lives generally, then we can be much more effective because we're using the leverage or the power of the most powerful causes in a particular event. And what I'm going to try and encourage everyone to do today is to be incredibly ambitious and try and think of the most powerful or most far-reaching thing that you and your firm can actually achieve. But try and think of a way to do that which doesn't use up a huge amount of resource, doesn't use a huge amount of money, doesn't use up a huge amount of energy and time. Because basically all that we have in life is energy.
What matters today, increasingly, is not physical effort and physical production, but the creativity of the human mind. Our ability to devise, make and sell ever more ingenious products and services, liberated from the drudgery of hard work.
And if you believe the 80-20 principle, then you could sort of think about your work in a completely different way.
If you can focus on a relatively few very profitable products, you can increase the average profitability and lower the average cost of your product.
20% of customers will give you 80% of your profits.
So you may need to recategorize who your customers are before you can actually decide who the most profitable ones are.
Now, who do you think is more likely to help you in your life or your work? Is it your close friends and family? Or is it people that you very rarely see? Think about where you get knowledge from. Where do we get knowledge from? Do we get knowledge mainly from our friends and our family, or do we get knowledge from what he called distant parts of the social system? The problem with our friends and family is that they have pretty much the same information that we have, but they don't have a hell of a lot more. And the way in which you get insight, which can be very valuable, or information which can be very valuable, is by going to the distant part of the social system. What on earth does that mean? It means people who move in different worlds from you. It's just a matter of having discussions with people who are not from the same background as you, and putting together people who are basically from different backgrounds. What you're doing then is becoming a super connecting leader, a super connecting person, because you're bridging two different worlds.
The history of civilization, I suggest, is actually the history of achieving more from less. This is what's behind the success of humankind collectively, behind the success of businesses and corporations, and behind the success of teams and individuals. It's also the route to making every one of us in this room more productive, more useful, more prosperous, and even happier. We've never been so free, yet we have never failed to realize so much the extent of our freedom. We've never had more time because we've been freed by machines and by the wonderful progress of industry and science. And yet we never have felt more pressured.
Today, we work probably about half the hours that our forebears used to work in the middle of the 19th century. And since then, the gross national product of the UK per capita has gone up something like 100 times. If you look at the time that it takes you to make any major achievement, when you're winning a major client, or you come up with a product idea, or you do anything else which is fundamentally going to change the direction of a company, or you make a decision, I'm going to start a business, or I'm going to start a new project within a firm. How long does it take? The answer is usually, not always, but it's usually not much time.
Most life, especially most business life, is trivia. Don't work to deal with the trivia, work to avoid the trivia.
So, productivity is not related to hours. Value is not related to time. You reach a point at which you not only hit diminishing returns, you hit negative returns in terms of working. And it's all part of this idea that you stop thinking when you're working very, very hard.
A hard-working person is often too busy to spot what is really important.
You need to maximize your discretion to work how you want. And the way in which you maximize your discretion, you need to be quite crafty about it. One thing to do is to make sure that you're delivering what your boss wants. Select just one priority each day and you tackle it first. At the beginning of the day, work out what is the one thing that I can do in a relatively short period of time, in hours or in minutes, that actually is going to have a major impact. Progressively reduce your work hours, so that if you have a smaller pot of time, then you're forced to be more effective. This is a very easy way of actually making a big difference in your company. One of the questions that you should ask yourself is, which single powerful idea will turbocharge my career? How do I achieve much more with much less? What constraint is most holding me back? Basically, you've got to be curious, ask questions. The point isn't the 80 and the 20, it's the very few powerful causes and the large number of almost completely irrelevant causes. You're trying to find the really powerful things which really work well, the horse that you can ride.